I have received a couple of notes from listeners who asked me what I am most surprised about during this pandemic. But there was one note from a listener that really caught my eye. She asked me what I was least surprised about. I thought that I'd respond to that question in this video because it gives me the opportunity to reinforce a phenomenon that is going to have a significant impact on my colleagues who are community college employees. On May 4th, my weekly video discussed how different types of colleges would be affected by the pandemic, and it included this. My belief is that the smallest effect will be on community colleges. And in fact, the pandemic advantages community colleges in a number of ways. While it's true that the recession may result in cuts in public funding, recessions have historically led to increased community college enrollment 100% of the time. Recessions cause people to seek out less expensive alternatives for everything, including education. And community colleges offer the most bang for the buck, bar none. Recessions also create the need for rapid retraining, and community colleges are the most common destination for short-term retraining. But it's not just the recession. A new aversion to large urban environments and the continuation of social distancing also make many community colleges, which are often smaller and more rural, appealing. Also, rural community colleges are far less dependent on international student enrollment, which is projected to drop by about 25% in the upcoming year. So I think that community colleges are likely to be the only sector that may experience an enrollment increase during or following the pandemic, depending on how long it lasts. The longer the pandemic progresses, the more the list of issues that I gave in that video apply. And although many states, including my own, have eased restrictions, it's clear that some form of social distancing, which obviously has a strong effect on all levels of education, will need to be observed for the foreseeable future. But at the same time, community colleges are a predictable destination for excess students during a recession. It's important to remember that in the last recession, despite the multitude of sectors within higher education, from regional colleges to universities to tech schools to online colleges, community colleges absorbed half of all of the growth in college enrollment during the recession. So the first sign that my prediction was correct was the immediate communication that I received from colleagues who were leaders at their own community colleges. Talking to them, a fairly distinct pattern began to emerge. Large community colleges that served large populated service areas expected to see significant growth. Community colleges in smaller, rural areas were expecting smaller growth. Some of them expected simply to maintain flat enrollment, but even that is pretty good in this environment where four-year colleges and universities are nearly all expecting double-digit drops in enrollment. Now, anecdotes aren't the same as data, but it's become obvious as more and more schools release enrollment projections for the fall that community colleges are in a good position. Most telling of all is that some community colleges are actually beginning to worry about their ability to absorb the increased number of students. The Atlantic magazine, whose reporting on education during the pandemic has been just outstanding, just published an article by Sarah Goldrick-Robb entitled "Community Colleges Aren't Prepared for This Crisis," and explains, using both anecdote and data, that families are turning to local two-year institutions amid the pandemic, and that schools aren't equipped to handle the influx of students. I actually think that community colleges are better able to handle additional students than the article suggests. Although community colleges face all kinds of funding issues that cumulatively limit their ability to meet student needs, they have other advantages. The gradual decline in community college enrollment at most schools during the most recent period of high employment means that from a physical facilities standpoint, most colleges currently have surplus capacity. Now, that's not the same as having teachers to work with students or other kinds of support personnel. But the layoffs that we've seen at other kinds of schools will create a fairly substantial supply of available teachers for schools that find themselves needing them. And because most individual community college campuses are relatively small, Community colleges won't have to alter their operations as much as large schools will need to in order to preserve social distancing. Although none of us are in a great place as a result of the pandemic, the effects on each institution do lie somewhere on a continuum, with the schools fighting for their very survival at one end, and in my opinion, community colleges at the other. As always, I hope this perspective has been helpful to you. I always enjoy your questions, and I look forward to talking with you again next week. Stay safe and stay healthy.